Today I'm going to show you how to create NA Miata clear taillights. Thankfully, the NA Miata is going to be one of the easiest set of taillights that you can clear. First, we need tools. The most obvious thing that we are going to need is the set of taillights that we're going to modify. Now, these are the aftermarket set of lights. You can find them on Amazon, eBay, and a ton of other parts websites. They're just going to be your basic aftermarket set of lights that you can find. If you get the chrome ones, it's going to give you the nice clear look that everyone is looking for. Next up, you're going to need a flathead screwdriver. You can see that I have 3 out here, and realistically, all you're really gonna need for this set is 1 screwdriver. If everything goes according to plan, 1 will be more than enough. Something like this, medium-sized screwdriver is what you would really need. But we personally like to take it an extra step and get a really, really thin screwdriver so that this top line here we like to take it a step further and use a pocket screwdriver so that we don't damage the back housing here. It's gonna stay nice and clean all the way around. Then we have this big screwdriver so that we can actually pry this plastic piece apart, these 2 plastic pieces. We can pop them out a lot quicker than we can with the medium one, and it takes a little less effort with this guy. This screwdriver really only makes sense for us because we do a lot of these lights, so I wouldn't say something this big is really gonna be necessary. A medium-sized flathead screwdriver is gonna be plenty for this set of lights. Next up, you're gonna need some clamps. This is for whenever you put the lens back together. You have your fresh butyl in there, you have all your mods done, your lenses are going back on. It's time to take it out of the oven, put some microfibers over the lens itself so that your clamps don't scratch, and then clamp the lens down, and then you're gonna let it cool. Once the butyl has completely cooled, then it's now in the point where it's not going to let the lens go. It's gonna be like a glue. It's gonna stick in there. And lastly, the most important part of this whole project is going to be retro rubber. This is butyl, and that is exactly what is already inside of these taillights. When you take these apart, you're gonna be removing some of that butyl, and it's gonna break the seal. So what we need to do is put fresh butyl in there, creating a brand new seal, and this is OEM grade stuff for these lights. Since these lights are butyl sealed, you do need to heat up the lights in order to loosen up the old butyl that's in there, and we can get the lens off. There are 2 different ways that you can heat up a light. Version 1 is to put it in the oven and bake it. That's our preferred method. It heats the light up evenly and you don't have any hot spots or any melted spots. If you don't have an oven that you can use a heat gun. Heat gun is a pretty easy way to heat up the light, but we typically don't do that. I find that it takes longer and you have an easier chance to damage the light. And third, if you don't have a heat gun, you can use a hairdryer. I've personally never used a hairdryer, but there are people who have done it. So since we are going to use the oven method, it is time to take these lights to the oven. Literally going to put this whole thing inside this oven right here, and we are going to set the oven to 220 degrees Fahrenheit. We typically set the temperature in between 210 and 230, depending on the light that we're working on and depending on the oven that we're using. If you have a newer oven, it might be a little hotter. That oven is super old and has been in this house since about the 80s. So it is not the best machine, so it is perfect for baking lights open. If you're not sure what temperature is best for your oven, I suggest doing it for about 8 to 10 minutes on a lower temperature. Check the lights, feel if that seal is actually loosening up. If it's not, then you can bump the temperature up 10 degrees, do another 8 to 10 minutes, and retest. You will also notice that we have these rubber mats in here. You can Google it. These are rubber cooking mats. They are designed to actually go in the oven and cook with, but it makes it a perfect protected layer from the grate inside the oven. I found those at Walmart, but of course they sell them on Amazon and all over the internet. Now we are going to wait about 8 minutes for those to heat up, and then we can take them out and pull the lenses apart. Okay, it's been a little over 8 minutes. Now it's time to get this out. Whoo, that's hot. Now this is where I use the small flathead screwdriver. Like I said, you can use the medium size as long as you don't damage it, but I'm gonna use the little one so that I can just up my chances of not creating any damage. So to open these, I'm gonna put the screwdriver right inside here. And if you look really close, you can actually see the little tab that we're trying to release. The next tab is right over here. We're not trying to pull the lens apart. All we're trying to do right now is release the tabs. This next tab is right here. And I'll try to go to the left of this one because it's a shorter trough. And there's one more tab right here. Now that we have all 4 tabs released, you can slowly start to lift the lens. I find it easier to actually raise it up like this and separate it. Then with the butyl strings, just kind of push away from the chrome so that it doesn't get on there. And pull this off and away. Try not to hit the lens. There we go. Now that the lens is totally off, we can start to remove these little guys. The cleanest version of this is sticking the screwdriver through the back of it and literally just hammering it. Most of the time they don't release that way, so you kind of have to crack it loose a little bit. To do that, you just take your screwdriver, put it right there in between the back housing and the little lens. There we go. That one usually comes off pretty easy. The big one here, a lot tougher. We'll try to hammer it off, but sometimes you have to get in and twist to crack it loose a little bit. We'll get over here, right up under here, and twist. This one's being tough today. Oh, still don't want to go. It's okay, we still got techniques that we can use. Now, the next thing I'll do, if it wouldn't come loose the other ways, is I'll take a drill bit, in this case, a little Christmas tree bit, step down bit, whatever you want to call it, and I'll drill a hole right into the red lens that is big enough for this to go in. And then you can actually pry on it, hope that it comes off this way. We'll pry it the other way, try to start cracking it loose here. Okay, so it did finally break loose a little bit. All I'm gonna do now is with a pair of needle nose, pull the rest of it off. And we finally got that red lens out of there. Normally they're not that difficult. So since I did have to drill a hole in it, there are little red plastic pieces everywhere, especially inside the butyl. So I'm gonna clean all this out, get all those little red plastic pieces out, and then we can add fresh butyl in the trough and get this new lens on. Now that we've got everything cleaned off, it is time to put some fresh butyl in there. Now I do cut it and stretch it just a little bit, just about that much so that it fits right inside the trough. And then we'll go ahead and fill it up. Okay, it didn't quite fit all the way across, so we have to get a little bit more. Okay, now that we've got fresh butyl pushed into the trough, now we can prep this lens. This lens has a little bit of dust on it, so we're gonna go clean it. There we go, we got this cleaned off with some compressed air. Thankfully, this is such a quick mod that you really don't even need to cover this up with some cling wrap because it's not even gonna be open that long. Now that we got it all clean, just set it in place like this. It's not gonna go all the way down yet. If you try to force it, you will break it. But if you get it set in place, you can set it inside the oven just like that. We'll wait another 8 to 10 minutes and we'll clamp it. One thing I'm really bad at, but I need to do, is start setting timers because it's extremely important that you don't leave them in there too long, especially if you're anything like me where you want to be extremely efficient, like throw the light in the oven and then start working on something else like I'm doing right now. Then it's really easy to forget that that's even in there. Next thing you know, it's been an hour and you go back and that is a completely flat and melted piece of plastic, all one piece. Okay, it's been about another 8 minutes, which means it is time to clamp this down. So the way I do this is I take 2 microfibers and I fold them in half so that you get that extra layer in there. lay them across the entire lens, but make sure that it's not going inside the trough, because once you get a microfiber in there, it's really hard to get out and it leaves all the fibers in the butyl. Not fun, and it looks like trash. So, got it folded over. Now you can actually literally just put your clamp like that. This side, I'm gonna double it up. There we go. Now, while you've got it like this, it's a good idea to go ahead and check the top and the bottom and make sure that it is all the way seated. In this case, it is not. You can actually see right there, there's a big old gap. The most important part is making sure that these tabs are fully set in place. Go ahead and check the bottom side as well. Yep, there's a gap right here. This is still hot. We are going to leave this clamped up just like this for probably 30 minutes to an hour so that this whole thing can cool off. Alrighty, it's been about 30 minutes. It is now cooled off. So next, what I typically do is I go ahead and inspect everything, make sure that everything looks good. One thing that you really want to make sure stays on these lights is this little rubber gasket around the edge, especially if you're a builder who doesn't own an NA Miata. You wouldn't know it, but this right here is actually really important. Without this rubber gasket, there will be a gap on the NA Miata. I had to learn that the hard way from a customer. Thankfully, I was able to grab an extra set of the rubber gaskets and ship it out to them. So if you are building these for a customer and you don't have a Miata, make sure you hang on to those, ship it out to them. Once we have checked to make sure that everything looks good, everything is still here as it should be, I'm gonna go ahead and spray wax it. Gonna get the lens nice and clean, nice and shiny, and then we're going to package it up. Now this is typically the spray wax that I use because Sam is an absolute legend, but also I can buy this and enter to win a car. So, you know, gotta play the odds there. Of course, at this point, if you're building them for yourself, you're done. All you need to do is pop the bulbs in and bolt it into your car. But if you are a builder and you're shipping these out, I like to use cling wrap to protect the lens. This is not a necessary step. They don't even ship them in with an extra layer of protection on the lenses, but I like to go ahead and ship it out with that extra layer of protection just because shipping is hard on lights. Like I said at the beginning, this is definitely one of the easiest sets to build. I really wish they were all like this. Unfortunately, they're not. Some sets we have to just create our own lenses, and that doesn't really go that well half the time. Okay, got that cling wrapped up. Go ahead and put that in the bubble wrap. Now, if you remember, the lenses go in. One side goes on this piece of foam. The other side goes on that piece of foam. Lens inside. And all done, ready to ship.